Hello friends, I'm Nikki Ruth, and this is Valley of Secrets. Today we're stepping into part 1 about a man Canadians came to know as the Beast of British Columbia. In a span of 9 months, he tortured and murdered 11 children, all while being supervised as he had just been released from prison, a place that he had spent most of his adult life. This is the story of serial killer Clifford Olson Jr. Clifford Robert Olson Jr. was born on January 1st, 1940 at St. Paul's Hospital. He was a New Year's baby, and although he wasn't the first baby of the year, his parents still got a couple of little gifts and a picture in the newspaper. His mom, Leona, had come west from the prairies, and his dad, Clifford Sr., had enlisted with the Canadian Army and worked as a serviceman during World War II. He was gone for long periods of time, which left Leona to raise Clifford Jr. alone. Eventually, Clifford Sr. and Leona had 3 other children, 2 boys and a girl. After a short move to Edmonton during the war, the family came back to BC and settled into Richmond, living in a neighborhood for war veterans. Clifford Sr. got a job delivering milk by horse-drawn wagon, and Leona eventually worked in a fish cannery. They weren't rich, they weren't glamorous. They were just a regular working-class family trying to get by. And yet, even in that pretty normal environment, Clifford did not fit in. Teachers remember a kid who needed attention. He acted out, not because he was lost or struggling, but because he wanted eyes on him. He skipped school, he failed grades, not because he couldn't do the work, but because he basically refused to play along. By high school, he was doing more dodging than learning, talking his way out of things, talking over adults, talking to control the room. Manipulation came naturally to him, and it started young. And here's the thing that really stands out when you look at Clifford as a kid. He wasn't just mischievous, he was calculated. Neighbors constantly complained that he'd sneak into their yard to steal berries or vegetables, then turn around and try to sell it back to them. He would also grab milk money off porches, swipe bottles, or loose change from open garages. Basically, if it wasn't bolted down, Clifford treated it like it belonged to him. And it wasn't because he needed any of it. His family wasn't necessarily struggling. He did it for the thrill. That little rush of getting away with something. And when you pair that with the stories about missing pets in the neighborhood, yeah, those early warning signs everyone talks about, they were already flashing bright red. Because anyone who spent time around true crime knows this. When you hear that a child was cruel to animals, your brain kind of goes, oh no. For years now, the FBI and researchers have talked about this pattern. Not every kid who hurts animals becomes a serial killer, but a huge number of serial killers started with animal cruelty. It's not kids being kids. It's practice. It's learning how it feels to control something vulnerable and enjoying it. By 16, Olson had dropped out of school, and by 17, he was breaking into homes. He worked around a racetrack for a while, but he was more focused on hustling than actually earning his way in life. And from there, it basically was a revolving door of crime and jail. Over the next couple of decades, Olson racked up more than 80 convictions, from fraud, impersonation, break-ins, robbery, prison escapes, parole breaches, you name it. He'd get locked up, get out, commit more crimes, and then go back in over and over again. Prison didn't reform him. If anything, it refined him. He snitched on other inmates when it suited him, tried to charm staff, played every angle he could. At one point, he was even stabbed 7 times in prison and somehow convinced a provincial board to pay him compensation of $3,500 for his quote-unquote courage. He was always working some kind of angle, and it worked for him. Meanwhile, his brothers and sister, they grew up to be completely ordinary, law-abiding people, working, raising families, and staying out of trouble. There was no big, obvious trauma in the Olson household that explains why Clifford went so far off the rails. And that's one of the most disturbing parts of this whole thing. He didn't come from chaos. He brought chaos into an otherwise normal home. His parents spent years answering the door to police, visiting him in prison, paying off debts, hoping this time he would change, and eventually realizing he just wasn't going to. They stopped hoping. They just braced themselves for the next disaster. What none of them, not his teachers, not his parents, not the guards watching him, could see yet was that this manipulative, petty criminal they've been dealing with all these years was evolving into something much worse. A predator. A man who was going to take lives, not just money. By the time he was 41 years old, Clifford had spent all but 4 years of his adult life behind bars, and he was walking out of prison again. This time, he had a new disguise. He was going to try to be a, quote-unquote, family man. It's September 1980. Olson is just released from prison again. He is attending church at People's Full Gospel in Surrey and meets a young divorcee, Joan Hale, around the same time. By November, him and Joan are living together. To her, he's helpful, charming, trying to start a new life. Almost immediately, Olson starts putting up advertisements for window washing jobs for teens on the church bulletin board as a lure. And within a couple months, his killing spree begins. It's November 17th, 1980. One of those classic Lower Mainland days where the sky is gray and the ground is wet from the rain. 12-year-old Christine Ann Weller is out in that weather, pedaling her bicycle hard, trying to get home in time for dinner. Christine lives with her parents in Unit 2 of the Bonanza Motel at King George Highway. Back then, that stretch of Surrey was wide open, muddy fields, scattered trees, not the built-up corridor we think of now. Earlier that afternoon, she'd gone to Surrey Place Mall. That was the spot back then. She spent a couple of hours exactly how you'd expect a 12-year-old to spend them, wandering around, talking to friends, and window shopping. But by about 5 p.m., she realizes she's late, so she borrows her friend's bike, and it's a quick 3-minute downhill ride back to the motel. But she never makes it home. She was reported missing on November 25th, 1980, 8 days after she went missing. When the police finally started looking for her, they treat Christine as a possible runaway, as she had run away from home in the past. And I can only assume that her parents had thought the same thing, which was why there was a lapse in time to report her missing. But a teenage runaway was sadly the default for pretty much every missing kid between about 10 years old and 17 at the time. That label, runaway, cost time. Precious time. Then something changes, because officers found her borrowed bike abandoned behind an animal hospital on King George Highway, just a few blocks from home. That's not a kid taking off. That's a kid who never made it back. Weeks go by. Then on Christmas Day, a man is out walking his dog along the Fraser River Dike in Richmond, and he notices something near an informal dump site off River Road. A nude body of a girl, later confirmed to be Christine. She'd been left out there in the cold and in the rain. The autopsy showed multiple stab wounds to her chest and abdomen. She'd also been strangled with a belt and sexually assaulted. That discovery destroys whatever hope her family had left, and unknowingly marks the beginning of one of the darkest chapters in BC's history. It's New Year's Day, 1981. Kim Verbecki is 16 years old. According to the province in 1994, she's hitchhiking in Surrey when a man pulls over and offers her a ride. He's friendly, chatty, even offers her what sounds like a job helping him with odd tasks. Nothing about him screams danger, and in 1981, accepting a ride wasn't unusual, so Kim gets into the car. But instead of driving her to work or even into town, Olson steers toward isolated areas along the Squamish Highway. Quiet roads, dense forest, the kind of place where no one would hear a scream. And once they're deep into the trees, everything shifted. Kim later described what followed as hours of terror. He assaulted her repeatedly, physically, sexually, and violently, while threatening to kill her. At one point, she said he even got out of the car, walked around, and scouted what looked like a place to dump her body, as if he had already decided she wasn't going home. While he's assaulting her, two young boys happen to come close to the vehicle. Olson panics and grabs a gun and fires shots to scare them away. Those boys later identified both Olson and Kim. Kim eventually does something incredibly brave. She convinces him to stop at a gas station, telling him she needs to clean herself up. Somehow, and I don't know how she had the presence of mind in that moment, she manages to escape and runs for help. She goes straight to the RCMP in Squamish and gives a full statement. An officer photographs all her injuries, and then she identifies Olson in a photo lineup instantly. Olson is arrested and charged. And here's the part that will make you want to scream. The Crown chose not to proceed in pressing charges. They dismissed Kim as not credible, even going as far to calling her a liar and a tramp. Kim has carried that moment for years. She has said publicly that the guilt should never have been hers to carry, and she's right. If those charges had moved forward, Olson wouldn't have been on the street in the spring of 1981. And if he hadn't been on the street, the killing spree could have ended before it had even began. Kim survived, but the system failed to act on her survival. And because of that, Olson was free to keep hunting. By the spring of 1981, if you didn't know his history, Olson might have looked almost normal. He's living with Joan Hale, who is now pregnant with his child. Neighbors see him outside painting, chatting, puttering around like any other suburban guy. But behind closed doors, he's drinking heavily and has started to abuse Joan. It's Thursday, April 16th, 1981. Colleen Marion Dagno is 13 and living in Surrey. She's just finished a sleepover at a friend's and promises her grandmother she'll be home by 4 o'clock. Totally ordinary. Kids make those promises all the time. Her plan is to take 2 buses back to Old Yellow Road where she lives. Witnesses later remember seeing her at a bus stop in North Delta, probably just standing there with her bag, watching traffic and waiting for the bus. But a car pulls up and a man offers her a ride. Colleen gets in, and she never makes it home. It takes 3 days before she's reported missing. Again, she's labeled a runaway. And I know I've already said this, but the pattern is hard to ignore. How long it took to report these kids missing, and how fast the word teenager became runaway in files. Her family waits, and 5 months go by. Then on September 17th, 1981, searchers find Colleen's skeletal remains in remote Surrey woods, east of 144th and near 26th Avenue, close to the U.S. border. Investigators determined that she had been struck repeatedly in the head with a hammer, causing severe fatal skull fractures. Because of decomposition, the coroner could not say for sure if she had been sexually assaulted or not. Her sister had to identify her by her clothes, a borrowed red Adidas t-shirt and a part of a bra. That image stays with me. A sister standing there looking at a t-shirt and saying, yes, that's hers, but not being able to see her face, not getting to hold her hand and say her goodbyes, just recognizing what her sister was wearing. 6 days after Colleen disappears, Olson kills again. It's Wednesday, April 22nd, 1981. Darren Todd Johnsrud is 16. He's not from BC. He's actually visiting from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, staying with his mom and siblings in Coquitlam. It's supposed to be a nice visit, a little freedom, a change of scenery, and he's only been here for 2 days. That afternoon, he heads to Burquitlam Plaza, a local mall. He goes into a drugstore to buy cigarettes, like so many teens did around that time. Nothing about it should have been dangerous, but outside, Olson was lurking. And Darren doesn't come home. His family starts searching. They hope, they fear, and then less than 2 weeks later, on May 2nd, 1981, his body is found near a dike in Desroches, BC, a small community east of Mission. The coroner said he was killed by multiple blows to the head by a hammer. Some accounts say he was dumped into a ditch and left like trash. It's brutal, it's cold, and it is so unfair. Darren's murder confused investigators because Olson didn't stick to one type. He ended up targeting both boys and girls, and his victims ranged widely in age. And in the early 1980s, that mattered because at the time, experts believed sexual predators usually focused on victims of a single sex and a narrow age range. That assumption shaped how police investigated these crimes. Because Darren didn't fit the pattern of the murdered girls, his case wasn't immediately linked to theirs. A decision that, in hindsight, would have devastating consequences. And all of this is happening while at home, Olson's girlfriend is caring for their newborn son, Clifford Stephen III, born on April 10th, 1981. Joan and Clifford then married at People's Gospel Church in Surrey on May 15th, 1981, and move into the same apartment complex in Coquitlam, where his dad works as the maintenance man. It honestly chills me to think about that contrast. He's got a new baby, a new wife at home. He's taking on the role of dad and husband. And at the same time, he's out hunting other people's children. And just 4 days after his wedding, he is driving around looking for his next victim. Late in May 1981, Olson finally lands on police radar again. This time, it's for impaired driving and contributing to the delinquency of a minor. He crashes his car in Agassiz, a small farming community about an hour east of Vancouver. In the passenger seat is a 16-year-old girl, and police learned that Olson had picked her up earlier in Coquitlam near the Cottonwood Avenue and North Road area. The girl doesn't believe Olson is a sexual predator, but what she tells officers is still deeply concerning. She says that Olson offered her a job, bought her alcohol, and gave her pills. Later, she handed it over to police, and lab tests identify it as chloral hydrate, a powerful sedative commonly referred to as quote-unquote knockout drops or Mickey Finn. It's one more warning sign, one more moment where Olson's behavior could have been stopped, and it wasn't. It's Tuesday, May 19th, 1981. 16-year-old Sandra Wolfsteiner, Sandy to her family and friends, is living in Langley with her sister. She has hazel eyes, shoulder-length brown hair, and to friends and family, she's just a typical teenager. That mix of confidence and uncertainty, still figuring out who she's going to be. That day, she had gone to her boyfriend's place for lunch and visited with his mom for a bit before heading back out to hitchhike to her next destination. The boyfriend's mother watched out the window as Sandy got into a silver two-door car and rode off. And I just want to pause here for a second, because if you weren't around in the early 80s, hitchhiking might sound wild. Why would anyone want to do that? But back then, this was normal. It wasn't automatically seen as dangerous the way that it is today. And it's because of people like Clifford Olson that hitchhiking became a thing you don't do by the 1990s. So Sandy is doing something that, for that time, was completely ordinary. She's just trying to get home. And Clifford Olson happens to pull up and offer her a ride, and she says yes. And that's the last time anyone sees her alive. According to a 2015 article by Jan Bouchard-Kerr, Olson persuaded Sandy to go with him to a cabin near Chilliwack, BC, roughly 60 kilometers or about 37 miles from where she'd been picked up. It's not entirely clear to me why she would agree to go that far with a stranger, but it's possible Olson used one of his familiar stories, offering work or presenting himself as someone safe and legitimate. And here's why that matters. What's important to understand is that Olson didn't actually have a real job at all during this period. In 1980 and 81, he wasn't steadily employed at all. He survived on welfare, scams, and whatever money he could hustle, while telling people he owned apartment buildings, managed properties, and had work to offer. The jobs were never real, but the lies were. So the idea that he lured Sandy there under the pretense of work fits a pattern we've already seen. Once inside the cabin, Sandy was attacked from behind. She was killed by blows to the head with a hammer, much like the other victims. Investigators later noted that Olson became angry when he found only a small amount of cash on her, less than $10, after she told him that she had $100. Her body was later discovered in a wooded area near Weaver Lake, east of Mission, a place you're going to hear about again and again because it becomes one of Olson's primary dumping grounds. 13-year-old Ada Anita Court is living in Burnaby with her ill mother and 20-year-old sister Darlene. She is one of 5 kids. Her older brother lived in an apartment in Coquitlam with his 2 toddlers that Ada babysat for every Saturday night. Her brother's apartment building also happens to be the same apartment that Clifford Olson had just moved into a month earlier. The next morning, Sunday, June 21st, 1981, the weather is warm and it's one of those perfect early summer days where everything feels safe and easy. Ada leaves her brother's apartment to catch a bus home to Burnaby, but she never arrives. That same evening, Jim Paranto, a 52-year-old logging camp chef, is driving up toward Weaver Lake, that same recreational area we mentioned earlier. It's a popular spot for camping, picnics, and fishing. Just after 8 p.m., he rounds a curve on the dirt road and sees something strange. A black pickup truck stuck in the mud, and a man beside it. At his feet, the body of a girl in a multicolored sweater. Jim's first thought isn't murder, it's accident. Maybe the truck hit her, maybe she fell, or maybe she needs help. So he does what any decent person does. He stops his car, he gets out, and he walks towards them. The man looks up and stares. A cold stare that makes every hair on the back of Jim's neck stand up, and he knows something is terribly wrong. He backs away, gets back into his vehicle, and tries to leave. That's when he realizes the truck is now coming after him. And what follows is a terrifying chase down logging roads. Eventually, Jim manages to turn toward the forestry camp where he works and loses the truck. At that point, he doesn't fully understand what he just saw. He doesn't know that Olson's truck has reportedly gotten stuck in the mud more than once while he's out disposing of bodies, or that Olson had called tow trucks from those same areas. A month or 2 later, before anyone publicly knows they're dealing with a serial killer, Jim reports what he saw to the White Rock RCMP. just after Jim reported what he saw to police, Ada's body is found near Weaver Lake. The coroner reports that she died from strangulation. Clifford Olson has now abducted and killed 5 kids, and his murdering spree is about to amp up in the month of July. On Thursday, July 2nd, 1981, 9-year-old Simon Partington eats a big bowl of cornflakes, gets dressed in his blue jeans and a blue t-shirt, and around 10 a.m. he hops on his bike that he got for Christmas the previous year to head over to his friends. Simon basically lives on his bike in those summer months, and in his bike basket is his friend's book, The Snoopy Festival, that he was planning to return. It's one of those small kid details that just stays with you. His friend's place isn't far, and he's ridden there many times before. This is the kind of ride kids make every day in the Surrey neighborhood. Around 5:30 p.m., his mother is getting worried as she hasn't heard from Simon and she expected him home for dinner. She calls the friend that Simon was supposed to visit and finds out that Simon never arrived there that morning. I can't imagine the panic that she must have felt in that moment. It's truly heartbreaking. On August 27th, Simon's nude body is found in a cranberry bog near Richmond, and he had been strangled. Just 1 week after Simon, Olson kills again. It's July 9th, 1981. 14-year-old Judy Elizabeth Cosma lives in New Westminster. She's quiet, shy, and hardworking. She already had a part-time job at McDonald's, which is impressive at that age, and she's trying to pick up a second job to help out and get ahead. That day, she has plans to go to Richmond to see a friend and apply for a job at Wendy's. There's absolutely nothing unusual about this. She's a teenager trying to do all the right things. Olson offers Judy a ride to Richmond, and she says yes. Over the next few hours, Olson does what he always does. He starts blurring boundaries. He offers her alcohol, and he gives her his little green pills, telling her they'll keep her from getting drunk. They drive around, and time starts slipping away. And while her family and police are searching for her, Olson takes his wife Joan and their baby Clifford on a trip to Knott's Berry Farm in California from July 10th to July 21st. And that detail just makes my blood run cold. So he kills a 14-year-old girl, and then the next day he's on a family vacation, riding rides, eating theme park food as if nothing happened. Judy's nude body is later found on July 25th, 1981, near Weaver Lake, the same region where Sandra and Ada were discovered. She had been beaten, raped, and stabbed 19 times. At this point, investigators are seeing a pattern. Multiple young victims, remote dump sites, the same general area in the Fraser Valley. Police are starting to piece things together. According to Malcolm Gray's 1982 article in Maclean magazine, Clifford Olson's name was first mentioned at a law enforcement conference as a suspect in these murders. Police put him under surveillance, which he should have been under anyways, since he was supposed to be on mandatory supervision since his prison release. So much for that. He certainly wasn't supervised that closely because he was able to murder 7 children and evade police. Sadly, there are 4 more victims yet to come. I know this episode is heavy. And if you're feeling it, trust me, I'm feeling it too. So take a moment. Breathe, hug your kids, do something grounding. In part 2, we'll talk about the remaining victims, how Olson was finally caught, and the cash for bodies deal that still leaves Canadians conflicted decades later. Until then, stay safe, stay aware, and stay curious.